Hotspur have appointed Thomas Frank as their new head coach.
And the consistency and the players know the patterns. But of course I'm aware that we need to be flexible sometimes.
You look what Thomas Frank has done over the course of 7 highly successful years, you can understand why Tottenham would be interested.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Stedka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 240, and we are back after a 1-week hiatus for the summer. Got the Todd Father alongside. He is at TC_Kasho. Todd, what is up, my man?
Any day, brother. Any day you can talk about a European champion team is a good fucking day. That's all you need to know.
That is all I need to know. Scott's also here. He's at Scott G. Bird. Scott, what's up, man?
Chilling, enjoying my Sunday. Been a lot going on in the transfer market, so you guys know I've been happy.
Yeah, he's been chomping at the bit. I've been holding him back like a wild dog. He just wants to be let off the leash to talk transfers, and we are going to do that for certain. A lot to talk about. Like I said, you take a week off in the world of Tottenham Hotspur, and the stories do build up. So we're going to dive into a lot of different stuff. Before we do, just a little bit of housekeeping for you guys. If you are used to watching the podcast on YouTube, might look a little bit differently in the future. The program that we use, the price of the brick is going up, so we're bailing. I've heard a lot of complaints about this too. If you know I'm not going to name the company we use, but if you know what we're talking about, you know what we're talking about. So if that's something that you've gotten used to, just note a change in the near future. Another thing, we're going to be doing pods pretty consistently here over the next few weeks as the season ramps up, but they may be a little bit more sporadic, and that's purely down to life changes for your boy here. We've got some schedule stuff, some travel stuff, so we're going to be getting pods out to you guys, but just note they may not be as consistently on Sundays as they have been in the past, but we will be getting the pods out and the information out to you guys as often and as is necessary and as we can. So that's, I think, all I've got in terms of the housekeeping. Before we dive right in, like, how's the summer been? Have you guys been taking a break from the soccer watching? I know we're all we're talking right now as Chelsea and PSG are playing in the Club World Cup. We've had Women's Euros going on. There's been a lot of soccer to consume. I know you guys are probably consuming more of it than I have. What's been your take, Todd?
It's been, all things considered, it's been a good summer of football watching for fans. I'm not sure that it's been a good summer of football for the players or for the clubs or for the individuals. And so you kind of take that with a grain of salt. Out here in San Diego, people are pretty juiced up about their MLS team that's leading the West right now. I'm not an SDFC fan for reasons that we've discussed here, but shout out to them for building the brand and building a quality product. The Club World Cup is something that we've talked about off pod, but we both kind of agree, this is too many games for top tier soccer, especially when you're hosting it in a place like the East Coast of the United States in the middle of fucking July. But that's just me. They literally just got done in this match right now having a cooling break. Yeah. So there you go.
Good thing the World Cup's not here next year or anything.
Oh, buddy. Anyhow, man. So it's been it's been, like I said, it's been good for the fan. It's not been good for the player.
Yeah, Scott, I know you've been taking in some local action as well. How's your summer of soccer been treating you?
Oh, I've been just soaking it in, loving every second of the summer of soccer. I've taken no breaks at all. Look, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I got a lot of time to throw some soccer on the TV while I'm trying to get a baby to go to sleep. So. But yeah, it's been great. I been going to a lot of Des Moines Menace games, as you just mentioned. USL League 2. Actually got free season tickets through my mother. Her company is a sponsor, so
shout out to Scott's mom.
That's been pretty sick. Yeah, for sure, no doubt. Shout out to you, Mom, for those tickets. And the boy loves watching soccer. He doesn't even know what he's watching yet, but he loves it. So we're getting him started early. Been watching a lot of soccer on TV. I think. We talked about the Club World Cup a little bit off air, like you already mentioned, Todd, and it's been, I think, from a sporting perspective, a really awesome thing. I think from a scheduling perspective, we could say, as you talked about, the fact that the games are loaded up, but also the fact that a certain organization essentially funded the whole thing, right, is another issue that I think needs to be pointed out. But I think for any team in this competition that's not European, it's been just an amazing experience and something they'll live with for the rest of their lives. And I think that FIFA needs to think about how to make this a better product for all those teams that deserve a chance to compete at the highest level like this. But it needs to be, again, done in a very different way. And then I think it would be really, really a really cool thing. I might even honestly, and again, it's challenging because FIFA is not UEFA and FIFA is not CONMEBOL and FIFA is not CONCACAF, right? But if they could get leagues to shorten their leagues every 4 years to run this tournament, right, that'd be really cool. Or just take a break, every fourth winter or something like that for this type of tournament. And again, shorten the length of a domestic season across the globe. Again, that would never, ever happen, but I'm just thinking out loud here. I think that'd be pretty cool because, again, these teams like Palmeiras, these teams like Boca Juniors who aren't playing very well these days, right? But everyone understands my point. For those teams to come compete, it meant a lot to them and it meant a lot to their fans. So I didn't intend to rant about the Club World Cup, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, as you were doing so, Andrew, Cole Palmer just made it 2-0 Chelsea against PSG. So I made a prediction before this match that Chelsea was going to give PSG all they could handle. And a big part of the reason why is because I still think the French league is a farmers league. And I think the Champions League was very watered down this year and made it a lot easier for them to win it. And it's just a personal shot at PSG because fuck those guys. But also because I'm looking forward to smashing them in a Super Cup final.
Which, as we know, is 1 month from today, August the 13th. We were recording this on July 13th. So, something to note. And obviously, a look ahead to once Spurs start to ramp up their preseason, which, by the way, starts this week. They're kind of ramping up to that being the first important match to take a look at. Before we get into any of that, guys, Scott alluded to it. Transfer market had kind of exploded this week. Spurs dive right in. They've signed Mohamed Kudus to a deal that the club is calling a long-term deal. I believe I've seen it reported as a 6-year deal, something of that sort. So Mohamed Kudus is the first big one. 24-year-old, obviously joins from West Ham, 55 million pounds. Todd, what's your general takeaway from this? Obviously, we know Mohamed Kudus. We saw a lot of him last year, obviously, in the little dust up between Van de Ven and Richarlison. But this is the dribbly winger that Ange was calling out for before he was let go. It seems
and that Nathan A. Clark, shout to that guy, has been calling out for like 5 years for us. And I think that's the best way to describe him. You don't get much more of a dribbly winger than the guy who's literally led the Premier League over the last 2 years. With take-ons. Like Daku was first last year by a few, but over the course of the last 2 seasons, Kudus has had more than anybody else. And so you look at that and you go, okay, so he's taken people on more and he has a higher take-on success rate and he's in the top 1% to 2% in that category. That's exactly what we were crying out for. That's exactly what Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson don't necessarily do, especially Brennan Johnson. Kulu can take on a few folks, but he's just not as fast. I think if this signing, just hear me out here, if this signing had either happened last summer or even the summer before that when he was coming from, or the winter window when he came over from Ajax, if it had come directly from Ajax, there'd be a lot more hype around this. I think the fact that he had a down season under Potter and then the guy that got fired before him, that I always screw up his name, he had a down season under them, but under David Moyes the year before, he had I want to say 16 goal involvements, right? Somewhere in there, or 17. It was 8 goals, 9 assists, somewhere in there. Anyway, you look at that and you go, if you can replicate that type of production in a split time role with Brennan Johnson in a Thomas Frank system across 4 competitions, that's big. That's a big deal.
Yeah, you like the sound of that. 19 goals for West Ham in 80 appearances. I mean, that you're talking about 1 every 4 games. That's not a terrible return. especially when you know he's giving you the effort as well. Scott, this is the first West Ham player to move to Spurs since Scott Parker in 2011. It's been a while that we've seen this. What's your take on the Mohamed Kudus signing?
I think it's fantastic signing. I think, not only was he the second highest, he had the second most completed dribbles in the Premier League, like Todd just said, but in the world, he was number 3, only behind Doku and Lamine Yamal. So a pretty fantastic stat there, I think, as Todd already kind of mentioned. But I also think just his positional flexibility and tactical flexibility is a huge piece of the signing too. He's a right wing. That's his position, right? But he can play the 10 really well. He can play the 8 really well. People have even said he can play deeper in the midfield. I'm not at all subscribing to that happening, but just to point out, he's flexible positionally. Also tactically, I think he's proven to be a great player in an Ajax system, which has a lot more of the ball, right? Also did well, as you mentioned, under David Moyes when West Ham didn't have much of the ball. So I think he can play, in a team that's going to sit back or get forward and smother their opponent. And I think Frank is going to flex quite a bit. So I think he fits into that super well. Just bravo to the club for getting it done. And it's pretty incredible how much he seemingly wanted to be here. And it also is pretty incredible that he got Stoneboy to write a track on the spot for him. For those who maybe don't know, Stoneboy is a massive artist in the reggae and world music scene, reggaeton, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't say it's reggaeton. Actually, there's probably some Puerto Ricans who would be upset with me grouping it into that category, right? But honestly, from the perspective of reggae music, he's way up there at the top. And so for Mohamed Kudus to get him to drop a track on the spot is pretty awesome too.
Yeah, dude, that intro video coming from the club, Andrew, was ridiculous. Super, super quality stuff. The I only wanted Spurs at the beginning of that coming from West Ham is fucking wild. And I was absolutely here for it.
There's a lot of cope, by the way, being offered by West Ham fans about all
buddy. It's a rough one. So 2 points on him. The first one is, he's all the other beneficial part about him is that he's used to playing in a platoon system, right? His best role is on the right wing, but that's where Jared Bowen plays for West Ham, who's easily their best player. So the fact that he's used to rotating and has still been able to be produce throughout is a big deal. And the last thing that I wanted to say was shout to Scotty Parker. What a lot of people don't know is that when we signed him from West Ham, that's coming off the back of him being the hammer of the year, 4 straight years, the entire time he's been there. He won PFA Player of the Year in the last year before he came to Spurs. So shout to Spurs for yet again taking the best player off a little brother.
No question about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also there was one thing I couldn't remember that I wanted to bring up, and Todd did bring it up, but I'll kind of elaborate off of it or piggyback off of it, which is there are people who were saying he had a little bit of a down year last season statistically, but he got pushed off the right wing by Jared Bowen quite often for West Ham too. So I think that's something to take note of. But West Ham were almost as bad as Spurs were last season in the Premier League, and so I don't think we take a lot of stock from his statistics last season. I think that can be a little bit of a
false narrative.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's just a blip, right? Players have down seasons and they bounce back. So he's still super young, and we've got honestly a 6-year deal for that guy is big news, because even if he's trash, we can sell him with a bunch of years left of club control, and that makes him valuable.
Yeah. Nope. And I think he walks right into the first 11 on the right side. I really do. I think it's going to be interesting what happens with Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson, right? But I think Mohamed Kudus is good enough to be a starting right wing pretty quickly.
And I want to kill this narrative right fucking now. And the reason why is because going into this season with the squad that we have, with the coach that we have, and his ability to be flexible and coach teams to be flexible in game, I don't think that we have a starting 11. I think we have a starting 6 that you could pretty much pencil in every week, and then everybody else gets rotational minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Todd, and I think that's not that I'm trying to beat dead horses here, but I think that's part of the appeal of a Thomas Frank system too, is that that you're going to have to approach it not with 11 guys, but probably with 18, 19, 20 guys in order to really get all the ducks in a row and be able to compete in all the places that you want to compete in.
And as a bona fide Ange lover, that was the hardest thing for me to kind of relinquish the fact that it's just the truth, is that the Ange system, as much as I love it and as much as its swashbuckling nature fits Spurs fans perfectly, it's not sustainable over 4 competitions, especially with the way that Daniel spends money. And so when you look at it that way, you go, well, Thomas Frank is absolutely better prepared to take this squad that we have and make it compete across 4 competitions.
Another guy that is going to help in this, which was officially announced since the last time we potted, we did talk a little bit about Kota Takai coming in from the J League. The 20-year-old center back made clear in his interview that he is a center back. There was some speculation that he could play fullback as well, but he pretty much said, "I'm a center back. I can play on the right or left, but I'm a center back." 4 caps with the Japan national team. Todd, I know you weren't on the last pod and didn't have a chance to talk about Takai. Like, I don't know that there's much to say other than hopefully this is a guy who can make that jump. I think a lot of people think that he is, because we've seen over the last handful of years a lot of Japanese players come into the Premier League and be really quality players.
So I think that there's going to be a ton of quality signings for Tottenham this window. I think this one might prove to be the sleeper of them all. Kota Takai came into Japanese national team. He's already got 4 caps before he's 20 years old. I want to say he's one of, if not the youngest player to ever play for the Japanese national team. He was the J League's Young Player of the Year last year, and if I'm not mistaken, made the J League team in like starting 11 for his play last year. He's one of the best defenders in that league at 20 years old. This is the type of signing that, first off, wouldn't be possible 10 years ago because the quality of football in the leagues across Asia wasn't nearly good enough, and that's changed. And now you're looking at this guy coming in, and I don't necessarily think that he gets first minutes here. I think he'll need a year of championship football or something to bet in, but I could be wrong. This guy's 6'4". He's an absolute mountain of a man, and I think between him, like you pair him and Vuskovic behind Van de Ven and Romero for the next 5 years, buddy, that is formidable.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one too. I don't know a ton about him, right? But obviously, as you said, I think you said this J League record signing, right? 5 million, but
yeah,
still the record coming out of the J League. I think it was Ali Gold. Don't quote me on this, but somebody who tends to have a beat on the club, right, was saying that it's maybe their understanding that he's going to be with the club for the first half of the season, then go out on loan over the window is kind of the plan, which makes a lot of sense. But I mean, obviously very different players who play very different positions, but I think of Matoma at Brighton and how he just kind of popped out of the J League and, lit things on fire pretty quickly. So again, different positions, lighting things on fire is two very different things for these 2 players. But I think he could be a really good signing for us.
Speaking of signings that have not yet come to fruition, but it seems like they're going to, another player we know a lot about, Morgan Gibbs-White, Nottingham Forest midfielder, 25 years old, apparently has had his release clause of £60 million triggered by the club. However, Nottingham Forest have said, not so fast, my friend, and are appealing the move. They're claiming that an illegal approach has been made for the player. Reports are out there that, part of this is because Nottingham Forest want us to pay the release clause up front right away. This seems like a delay tactic to me. I don't think that the deal is quite in jeopardy based on all reports we have. And again, we're recording this mid-afternoon Pacific time on Sunday, so things could change. But man, Morgan Gibbs-White for the midfield, Todd.
Buddy,
what do you say? How about that?
I'm fucking amped. I am amped. If we're able to pull this off, I think that it's going to be one of the marquee signings of the summer for us, without a doubt. The biggest thing that I want to point out about Morgan Gibbs-White is that he fits the Eze profile. He fits the 10 profile. He hits all of those profiles. He's an English full international. He is a £100 million player. And for us to get him for 60 mil would be an absolute coup. Now, there's a decent chance that Daniel's going to have to throw in a couple of preseasons at the Lane to get this deal over the line with Nottingham Forest, right, and give him the gates like he did with a couple of other squads. And the reason why is because we may not talk about this, but Tottenham makes around $2 million per match at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So when you look at all of that, they may also just say, F you guys, because we hit the number right on the head. We've paid your release clause. We did it before the fuckery that went down with Crystal Palace, as I heard rumors that like Morgan Gibbs White's release clause is only valid if they're not in the Europa League or the Champions League. And because of the fuckery that went down with the owner of Palace, who also has a joint venture with the owner of Lyon, and the two teams that benefited from the fuckery. We'll come on to that. But that withstanding, I think that we were able to make the signing and trigger the release clause before that announcement came out. And so because of the timeline on that, I think Daniel wins on a technicality.
Yeah, I had not heard about that clause that you're talking about, if they're in the Champions League or Europa League, the clause.
That's what some Forest fans are saying out there right now, that's kind of like the hang up, which is why I'm over here going, well, Daniel might have to shuck and jive a little bit to get this one over the line. That's why we haven't heard from it yet. But Morgan Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson are best friends. They're best friends. They love each other. They have almost a telepathic connection when they're on the pitch together. And I think that by being able to pair a 10 like Madison with Kudus and a 10 like Morgan Gibbs White with Brennan Johnson, I think makes us ridiculously strong across 4 competitions.
Yeah, completely agree. I think Morgan Gibbs White immediately becomes our best midfielder if we sign him.
Shots fired at James Madison and his Europa League medal.
I give a lot of credit to James Madison for that Europa League medal, but Morgan Gibbs White is a very, very good footballer.
What about Lucas Bergvall, Scotty?
I think Lucas Bergvall can be as good as Morgan Gibbs White, if not better, for sure. I think he's fantastic. I actually think Bergvall will probably be in the. If I look at midfield minutes next season, I bet he's top 3 on the team in midfield minutes. I really do. That's my hot take for the summer. But I could see a world where Bergvall, Kulusevski, and Morgan Gibbs White start fairly often together in the midfield and just do bits and pieces. And that's
I don't know if that's defensive enough. I don't know if that's defensive enough. But I like where your head's at.
Well, yeah. What are the bits? What are the bits they're gonna be doing? Like improv? What do you mean?
No, I think Morgan Gibbs White will play 8.
Bergvall's a hell of a dancer.
Probably is. That man can do everything, but no, honestly, I think Morgan Gibbs White will probably play 8 more than 10. If
probably right.
But yeah.
But then we need more of a traditional 6, though, if we're going to do that. That's what I'm saying is if you play him in the 10, then you can have Kulusevski kind of roaming and ranging. I don't know, bro. Honestly, I don't know enough about what Thomas Frank is going to do to speak confidently about where these players are going to play.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I just think I maybe all I'm saying is I think he's more of an 8 than a 10. But
yeah, fair.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And we're going to talk about this later, but there's kind of an idea that there's 1 or 2 more signings coming in beyond Morgan Gibbs White, and one of them, which is going to be a really big name, and I think that's probably your 6. I just don't know who that is right at this point. So
I got the two names, Scotty, that I think deserves mentioning in that kind of rumor mill are Adam Wharton, which is the dream signing, and I highly doubt it's going to happen. But that's the one that guy is generational. And I would love if we were ever going to spend £100 million on a player, I'd want it to be Adam Wharton. And then the other one that I think is a real solid move for us would be a Douglas Luiz.
I don't disagree with that. I prefer Wharton, but I think Luiz could come in and do a good job. I mean,
I think we can get Luiz, Scotty, for $40 million, and I think Adam Wharton's going to cross somewhere between 80 and 100.
I agree. 70 to 90 is kind of where I feel like Wharton's going to end up, so close. But if if we were to sign Wharton, Morgan Gibbs-White, and Mohamed Kudus, now the club came out and said we're targeting English Premier League proven players who are in their prime, right? And I think they said like 24 to 27 or something. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, right? But if that's the intention, I think Kudus, Wharton, and Morgan Gibbs-White could be argued as the three best players outside of like the top six, the traditional top six, right? In the Premier League right now.
Yeah, the only reason why I'm going to push back on that is Eze. That's the only pushback I have.
Like I said, there's an argument, not claiming, right?
Fair enough.
But and I don't disagree that Eze creates an argument there, right? But I just think those three are extremely talented Premier League proven footballers. Wharton's not quite in his prime yet, but he's going to hit his prime a lot earlier than a lot of folks do, right? So that would be a massive statement from the club if you go out and sign all three of those guys in one window.
Andrew, I think we also are going to need some left back help, so some depth there, or some right back, left back help, however you want to look at it.
And it's funny because weeks ago we were talking about links to both Dennis Sirkin and Kyle Walker-Peters just for the homegrown numbers and guys who could play fullback in kind of a rotational role with Poro and Udogi, and I'm sure there's names out there I'm even not even thinking
Archie
about.
Gray.
But, well, yeah, Archie Gray, sure. Ben Davis, if he sticks around, God only knows. Like who knows?
He's not a left back anymore.
But who knows? Yeah. But the point I think that I take away from this past week and all of this money being poured in is where's it coming from, which we're going to come on to here, and number two, it's nice to see Spurs actually doing this stuff in early to mid July rather than waiting through the preseason. Obviously, we know there's still a lot to come, but in talking about this splash of cash that's being made, a Gibbs-White deal, the Kudus deal, and talking about a potential third coming in the near future, a lot of the questions are being raised about where the money's coming from. The BBC is reporting that club ownership has made a club injection or a cash injection rather, and is kind of spearheading this effort to get some more Premier League proven players into the squad and a little bit more experience, if you will. A little bit of a weird situation because we had been talking weeks ago about how the club was low on cash and the financials weren't looking good, and then all of a sudden we're getting a cash injection from ownership. There's also word that there's a naming rights deal coming for the stadium, and that may not be, from the cash injection that we're talking about. That could be either with a Saudi entity. There could be an American outfit in the mix for that. We don't really know. There is reporting out there from Ben Jacobs of Give Me Sport talking about that naming rights deal maybe in the offing as well. So with all of this information, Todd, and talking about club financials and where's it coming from, what's your outlook on all that?
So we've talked for years about when this moment would come and how we would handle it. We were building all along, this was Daniel's vision, to build a global entity that eventually they would be able to sell for billions and billions of dollars. And we're fastly approaching that time. And, it's the likelihood, and you don't want to say because we don't know for sure, but the likelihood of what we're seeing is somewhere in the vicinity of 140 million from ownership investment and somewhere in the vicinity of 300 million in sponsorship rights. And so the question really becomes, how do you feel about Armco being a sponsor? And for those who don't know, Armco is like the largest oil manufacturer in the world, and it's entirely Saudi owned. And so you look at that and you go, how would you feel about that? How would you feel if across your chest you're wearing Armco as the title sponsor? At least it's blue, but that's about the only good thing that comes along with that name being across the chest of the kid. It's not something that I'm necessarily excited about, but at the same point in time, I'm addicted to winning with this football club, Andrew. And this is the way that this is going. And it's hard to look at the opportunity that this presents us and take a moral high ground when your contemporaries are not taking a moral high ground.
Scott, there's already been spending of around 122 million pounds this summer, and that includes the Tell deal, the Danso deal, Kudus, Vuskovic. That doesn't even include Morgan Gibbs White, which isn't even official. Like if that goes through, we're talking we're quickly approaching 200 million pounds already spent this summer for this club, with a lot more work to be done and expected to be done. I guess when it comes to all these conversations, this is where we are in sport. We were talking about with the Club World Cup earlier. Like this is not it's not just football. It's not just global football that is going this way. We've seen it elsewhere too. But I guess where are we at here? We play games every year at the Emirates and the Etihad. I mean, are we above that at this point as this club?
There's so many layers to this. Aramco is a Saudi Arabian organization, not, from my understanding, not owned by the Saudi Arabian government, but it is a Saudi Arabian business, right? So I think that comes into play here with the conversation that I want to have about it.
But I do believe that the Saudi government gets a piece of everything that every individual company does in that country.
They do. Now, there's not a good billionaire on the planet, in my opinion, right?
Facts.
There just isn't. Now, there is a distinction between a Saudi Arabian individual or a Saudi Arabian national and the Saudi Arabian government, right? There, at some point, there's going to be a conversation around Aramco and human rights violations. Any billionaire that from the States that injected cash into Tottenham has probably been involved in some sort of human rights violation, right? And so I will not take I just want to stay very clear of saying they're Saudi Arabian gross, because there's a lot of gross Americans, right? And there's human rights violations being committed every single day on our soil right now. And you both know what I mean by that. And there's human rights violations being committed every day in Gaza, and we're complicit in that. And so this is a very touchy subject, right? But I will say that I want to point out that a Saudi Arabian national is not the Saudi Arabian government, and I think that has to be a clear distinction in any conversation that we have about Aramco.
I would agree.
Well, and I also think the conversation is way different when you're talking about stadium sponsorship versus club ownership.
100%.
Well,
I think there's a distinction to be made there.
I also want to point out that there's about 15% of this club ownership that is specifically on purpose kept secret. And we don't know who the fuck owns that 15%. We don't know where it comes from or what they're doing with it. And nobody asks any questions. So if you think this money is coming from the Lewis family, or you think this money is coming out of Daniel's pockets, you can go fuck yourself. Because the only reason why Daniel puts more money into this club is to buy more of it. So this is likely, the ownership funds are likely coming from an unnamed entity within the organization.
Yeah.
It may or may not be Saudi. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But we've joined modern football for sure.
Well, and look, the sports washing conversation is one that's going to be, it has been had for the last, let's call it 10 to 20 years in a really more like public setting. And it's going to continue to be a conversation for as long as sports washing, continues to be a thing. As many longtime listeners know, I'm a huge golf fan, and it has completely upended the world of golf over the last handful of years. We've talked about it even on this pod, even though this is not a golf podcast, as much as sometimes I'd like to make it one. It's, this whole thing is the answer, as I always say, to all of your questions is typically money. Why is this happening? Money. Just say money, and normally you will be right. And that is exactly why this is happening. Why it's happening with Spurs in this moment. Look, we all have known for not only, I think, weeks and months, but probably years, that this club is on the verge of a really big change, just on the business side and the structure side. Everything is starting to change with this club, with new hires and people going out and everything. You can kind of see the wheels starting to churn with this club from a structural business standpoint, and everything's starting to move a little bit. And now that I think we're getting to that point where money's coming in from every which way because of what the stadium is, what the, just the trend of a club like this, none of this is shocking to me, but it doesn't mean we have to like any of it. We can look at it all with a very discerning, eye and have these conversations as adults. but there's also not much that we can do to stop any of it either. And that's kind of the discouraging part. We just have to be open about our conversations about it and how it makes us feel and how we react to it, I think. And that's as best as we can do.
Lead with honesty and integrity. That's our approach. So
fair enough. Let's talk a little bit of outgoings here, guys. Latest reports on Cuti Romero are that he's certainly not going to be driving anywhere for the next handful of months, but he's not going to be driving to Madrid. It seems The Athletic is reporting that Atletico Madrid have stopped their pursuit of Romero for the time being. I guess with all this money coming into the club, it seems like Romero has, there haven't been any real barks over the last few weeks about him going elsewhere. So it sounds like
I heard that he turned down his extension to the club that they offered him. So there's a chance, but that was before this influx of money was reported. So there's a chance he gets a new and improved option.
That's 100% true. Yves Bissouma is the other name I wanted to mention. There was a lot of reports over the last week about Turkey coming in, Fenerbahce wanting to sign him. But there's a lot of disputes about that as well now. There's a lot of talks that's just erroneous, which I know I'm wading a little bit into your territory here, Scott, with these tier 1 transfers. But, we'll have to see on Bissouma. It's kind of obvious that I don't think the club really wants Bissouma around anymore. I think they're ready to move on, but we'll have to see if there is a suitor. And then the only other name I had on my list for outgoings, Valise, we talked a little bit about in the last podcast. He has gone on loan back to Argentina for one season. Kind of weird that it's just a loan and not a permanent transfer at this point. He's 21. He's made some appearances for Spurs, but hasn't really kicked on. Scott, where are you at with these 3 names? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, with Valise, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't want a permanent move back to Argentina. I feel like he would feel like that was a regression. And the Argentinian league is just really, really rough right now. Just a poor product. Bissouma, please just sell him. I don't care. Reportedly we want $25 million for him. We got offered, I think, I don't know the number, but I know Juventus came in like the high teens, I think, and we said no, is what I read. Just if we're getting this massive $300 million injection, don't squabble over $6 million. Just sell Bissouma. It's fine, is my stance. And with Romero, I don't know. I think he did turn down the extension. He could always sign an extension. There were rumors, and it was Fichajes is like this. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I'd have to look at the name. But there's this source that's coming out of Spain constantly now with these, high profile rumors, and it was that Real Madrid was going to come in for like an $80 million bid for Romero. Not that I think that's happening, but I think what I'm getting at with Romero is he's clearly a winner, and when I say that, winning means everything to this guy. He broke down in tears when he won the Europa League and he's won the World Cup, So I think he just wants to win at all costs. And if I know Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid is very interested in me and my club won't sell me because they're not getting a big enough offer, and I look at the fact that we just finished 17th, and no disrespect to Thomas Frank, but we just signed Brentford's manager, I think that just leaves a lot of questions in the air. And when you know that 2 teams who are going to be competing for football's most elite trophies pretty consistently are interested in you, it's hard not to have your head turned probably at that point, right, is all that I'm saying. And so, but I also think Romero is a consummate professional who, and again, that winner, right, who will fight tooth and nail for the badge until he doesn't play for Tottenham anymore. But I don't see it being a long-term thing with him beyond his current contract.
I hate that answer, and I hope you're dead wrong. I think Ange on his way out the door looked at the club in the face and said the most important thing you do is keep Cuti Romero. And I don't disagree with that. Center backs traditionally mature and get better as they get older. Think Jan and Toby. And I want Romero for all of that. And I think that this contract, whatever one he signs next, this will be the contract for him. And I want it to be with Spurs. So I hope that he signs an extension, even if it's just for 2 years. I think that's totally fine. If you sign a 2-year extension, that gives us the next 3 years with you. And at that point in time, you'll know whether Thomas Frank worked or not, and you'll either have a bunch more trophies or be completely within your rights to say, fuck this place, I'm out of here.
Dude, you blew my mind when you said center backs, age like a fine wine. I don't think about that enough. And it's not like some crazy revelation, but I don't think about that enough. You've got attackers who kind of go this way, while center backs just kind of go that way as they age. And that football intelligence is more important than your athletic ability,
it's risk aversion, it's situational understanding, it's the 10,000 hours at the highest level to become the expert, right? Like that's what it's all about. And you don't get that when you're 25. You can't, even if you're Maul, right? There's a certain amount of the maturing process that happens in your late 20s, early 30s that you couldn't comprehend in your early 20s, no matter how hard you tried. And so as you do that, you see center backs decision making get infinitely better.
Yeah, I mean, guys, look at your beloved U.S. men's national team. They have 67-year-old Tim Ream starting for them, and he has been for the last 30 years. So that
guy doesn't look a day over 65, though. So shout to Tim Ream.
And we haven't conceded in forever.
For those not watching, I am being very sarcastic with my tone there. I am chuckling as I say that. Guys, that's, as I always say with the outgoings, like everyone wants the incomings, but the outgoings have to happen as well. So like, I would like to see that start to churn a little bit.
We've seen a few already, right?
Well, yeah,
we've seen a few contracts termed but you know what, realistically, I think that what Thomas Frank wanted to see what he had. Like a report just came out today that he's excited to keep Vuskovic around the first team this year. And there's a bunch of stuff that we don't know, the ebbs and flows that are going to occur over the next 3 to 4 weeks. I think towards the end of the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll see a lot more movement. And I think that will help, like, as we approach the week before the Super Cup final, I think this team will look a lot closer to the way it's going to look on opening day than it does right now.
Well, but you have to also remember that's 3 weeks away. Like, that's what we're talking about.
I said what I said.
The timeline is here. And you've actually led me into the last thing I want to talk about on the men's side of things. Preseason starts this week. We have a match 6 days from now. Spurs will play at Reading on the 19th. And that kind of kicks off the start of this. They play a week after that, a match at Kenilworth Road against Luton Town. And then they are off to Asia for some reason, matches against Arsenal and Newcastle on the Asian swing. Then they will come back to Europe.
I hope not a single first-team player touches the pitch on either of those games.
Well, one will for certain. When they play in South Korea, we know for certain one player will be on
20 minutes at the end of the game.
Here's hoping. But
sorry, I was going to say the issue there is that we have a new manager. If it was like the manager's 4th or 5th season with the club, I would leave that team at home, but that's just unfortunately not an option right now. So
well, and that is kind of the question I had for you guys. What are we looking for? Obviously, we're not going to take preseason matches too seriously because of the nature of them, but what are we looking for? Like you mentioned Vuskovic, Todd. I'm looking forward to seeing him. I'm looking forward to seeing Kota Takai. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the guys we haven't seen. Yang. There's names that like I want to see what they look like at least in these first couple of matches against the likes of Reading and Luton.
My biggest things is that I want to see the growth of our young players that were out on loan. I want to see Alfie Devine. I want to see Jamie Donnelly. I want to see Josh Keeley. Like I want to see these guys to see, how they're progressing. What do we actually have here? Because I truly believe, and this is just me, I think Jamie Donnelly is the one. I think he's the guy that is going to break through and make it to the Tottenham first team. And stay here consistently. I think he's the one. North Ireland international, full international, the ball boy from the Jose Mourinho video on Amazon. Like he is Tottenham through and through. And I can't wait. And he went to the League One last year for half a season and ended up leading the league in assists. So you look at that and you go, all right, dude, all right, what are we working with here? And every time you look at video of that guy, he shines on the pitch. And so I think it's just a matter of time. I hope we get to see him a lot. I hope we get to see a lot of Tyrese Hall. I hope we get to see a lot of Will Lancashire. I hope we get to see a lot of, even Alfie Dorrington. Show me some Alfie Dorrington. Let me know how that guy's doing. I think Ashley Phillips' time at the club is done. It wouldn't surprise me if he moves to a championship club or to a club in Scotland before the end of the window. They did their 100K or their 1K run, and the only one that was woefully off the pace was Ashley Phillips. And so I think that kind of sealed his fate. We'll see. But I don't know, man. I don't really worry about the squad size right now. And everybody's all, they're homegrown numbers and well, what we've seen throughout is that with injuries and with rotation and with all the things, like it's rare that a team like us gets hamstrung on those numbers too badly. So last year it was ugly. I don't think it'll be that ugly again this year.
Yeah, we get.
And I think a lot of the reason why, Scotty, is because you'll be able to keep some of those guys that are now club trained. So we'll see.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we get hamstrung from hamstrings and not from our club numbers. So thank you.
Touche, sir. Touche.
Wow. I wish I had a little rim shot for you there. Sorry.
Yeah, honestly, I think that the Phillips and Dorrington conversation is interesting. One of them has to go. I mean, we just brought in Kota Takai. We've got Vuskovic coming in. We can't have four center backs who are under the age of 20 with the first team, right? So, one of them will go. Phillips will get more money than Dorrington, so I think Phillips will probably also be sold. I don't think Dorrington has much of a future with the club, but I'd love to see.
He did really well in his loan to Scotland. Like he played extremely well for Aberdeen, took him to a cup final.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, I'd be interested to see him play and see what that looks like. I agree. Tyrese Hall. I really want to see Luca Williams-Barnett get some minutes as well. I don't know if he'll go with the club.
Good shout. I don't know if he will, but that's a good shout.
He's young. I'd really like that to happen. Guys like Scarlett and Lancashire, I hope they play their way into an opportunity elsewhere. I don't think that for sure not Scarlett.
Oh, wow. You're tossing Lancashire at 20?
I mean, I think that – yeah.
European goal last year?
Yeah, fair. He also got –
and then got a red card.
Yeah, his loan of 4. And I don't know. I mean, I think we're at the point now where I've always said that I think this club gets a little too attached to its youth, right? And I think that's because we haven't won anything for a long time, and so like our
it's been like a few weeks.
Yeah, our players, right, or whatever you want to say. But I think it might be time to go, but I'd love to be proven wrong. But ultimately, more than anything, I'm excited to see what Thomas Frank's Tottenham is going to look like, and obviously we're not going to see what that product truly looks like until probably March, but it'll be nice to start to see what that kind of looks like, right? And this is not a shot at Ange at all when I say this, but I suspect it's going to look a lot better than things looked last year, and I'm excited for that.
At least in defense.
Yeah, for sure.
Fair enough. There's still time, but as we mentioned, like the season is kind of right around the corner now, so it's kind of nice. A little bit more time for Spurs women to get their act together, but they have at least named a new head coach. It is Martin Ho. He is 35. He is joined from SK Brann out of Norway, where he has coached since 2023. Did not really know much about Martin Ho until I got to reading this week, but found out quite a bit. Spurs have given him a 3-year deal through 2028. This is a guy who's been coaching for quite a while, despite his young age. As I mentioned, 35. He is younger than all of us here on the podcast. Not a very old guy, but an experienced guy. He was an assistant manager from 2020 to 2023 with Manchester United's women, and then joined, as I mentioned, SK Brann in Norway, where he has been the head coach. He did take them to a Champions League quarterfinal, going out to eventual champions Barcelona, which is pretty cool. He's also leaving the club with them sitting second in the standings and just 1 point off the top to come to Spurs and lead the way for Spurs women. We don't have Caroline on the podcast today, but I'm sure they've talked about this at N17 Women. Look, they needed to make a move. Spurs women did and hire someone. They've done so. They can now move forward. I think for me, the expectations here are just get back to where they were a year or two ago when Robert Villeham had this team competing in a cup and maybe not competing for Champions League places in the WSL, but the WSL is about to get real with expanded field, and expanded relegation, and it's about to get a little bit tougher for this entity. And we've been talking for a while about what is the plan And Martin Ho is the man to lead the way. Scott, what have you learned in the last few days about this appointment and I guess just the direction of the club?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about Martin Ho other than he was an assistant at Man United before his most recent stint, which is escaping me. Sorry if you already mentioned that, but yeah, I think he comes with some good experience, and I think, you know, Man United, for all its flaws as an organization, with the way that it handles its women's team, has put a pretty good product on the field for the last, circa 5 years or so plus. So I think Martin Ho will take some really good experience and bring it to Tottenham. Ultimately, first I want to see a consistent enough starting 11, and again, not the same 11 every week, but there was a lot of chop and change last year, and some of that was down to necessity. I think Robert was kind of a victim of his entire creative attack getting gutted last summer, right? And coincidentally enough, ending up at Man United. But yeah, I think he just needs to get a consistent group playing a consistent style of football. I think a mid-table finish should be the goal this year for the women's team, right? Because I think they're good enough for that, regardless of what happened last year. But he just honestly, I think the boat has capsized, and Martin Ho needs to just kind of flip it back over and get it stable again. And that's really all I ask from him at this point.
Well, my biggest struggle with watching the women's team last year is that they didn't seem to have an identity at all. And the identity that Robert built in the first season seemed to go out the door with all of those signings, all of those departures that you mentioned, Scotty. It felt as though Robert was kind of let down by the club. It seemed like they pulled the rug out from under him because it was financially prudent to do so. And my hope is that the approach that we're taking on the men's side is similar to the approach that we'll be taking on the women's side going forward, which is buy young talent, cultivate them in our system, grow them into viable investments, and then either utilize them in the first team or sell them. And I think that, like, as we get a little younger on the women's side, I think we're going to be able to compete later in the season. I feel like the last couple of years under Robert, the wheels have kind of fallen off in the last 6-8 weeks of the year.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Martin Ho's the new man to lead it. Was an academy player up at Everton. He's actually from that area up in Merseyside, and coached there for a while. Actually, as I was doing some of my research, went from being an assistant with Everton's women to then coaching Liverpool's under-21 women's team for a season or two, and then took the job at Manchester United. So he's bounced around a little bit, but this is a big opportunity for him to make his name in the world of coaching women's football. So I'm interested to see the approach. And like you guys said, the club needs to support it. The club needs to do more to support this club, this side of things. One of the things they did do over the last couple of weeks is made a decent signing, I think. Center back Toka Koga, a 19-year-old, signs from Feyenoord. This is a player who's been a pretty decent fixture in the Japan national team, which is a very, very good squad on the women's side. She actually ended up scoring the winning goal in the She Believes Cup against Team USA back in February. She's signed a deal through 2029. Again, 19 years old, a center back, a really strong player. These are the kinds of signings that the club needs to be making and hoping that they can kick on, especially in defense where the center back pairing has not been there. There hasn't really been a great option for Spurs defensively, and that's been a big problem. So I actually was, I went to one of the She Believes Cup sessions in Glendale back in February here in Arizona. It wasn't the Japan USA match, but I saw a little bit of Japan playing and watched a little bit of Toka Koga play. So this is I'm on board with this type of signing. This is the type of move they need to be making, but I want more of it, and I want again. Going back to when Villaham was in charge, it seemed like all the players were coming from one source. It was players that either used to play with him or for him or against him, players that he knew really well. I think this club needs signings coming from everywhere, from all pools, and this is at least a start to that respect, Scott.
Well, it doesn't hurt that Daniel's been able to pull 2 Japanese national team players right before our trip to Asian. All right. I'm just saying that the strategy here is multi-layered, as it usually is with Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Kota Takai, I still don't know much, right? But with Toko Koga, not that I'm an expert by any means, but she's going to have 25 caps by the time she's 20 years old. So she'll be a quarter way to a century of caps as a teenager. She's been to the Olympics, as you said, Andrew. She's won the She Believes Cup. If somebody said you can only sign one player this offseason for the women's team, it would be a center back for sure. So, please don't let that happen, right? But the point is that I think this is a
let it be more, right?
Yeah, please. But this is a good signing in my opinion, and one that not only brings an immediate first team player into the fold, but one who could be here for a long time into her prime if things go well.
Yeah, they've needed someone to play with Molly Bartrip in the center back pairing. Hopefully this can be it. That would be a big plus. The other move for Spurs women over the last few weeks is Becky Spencer moving on a permanent deal to Chelsea. This, of course, was a little awkward because she went on an emergency loan there when Chelsea were short, kind of like after the window had closed during the last season. But now Becky Spencer has moved on permanently. Becky Spencer's obviously been around for a while. The 34-year-old joined Spurs in 2019 from West Ham and was part of the club's first top flight season, made 15 appearances that year, was a big part of that first season up in the WSL. 95 appearances in total, with 76 of those coming in the WSL, and was obviously a big part of the FA Cup run when Spurs made it all the way to the final, had the penalty shootout saves against Manchester City in that quarterfinal. Prominent player for the last handful of years, Spurs, and it's kind of become that time. Spurs have moved on at the goalkeeper position, so just a little bit of a fond farewell to Becky Spencer, and it is a little awkward that it's a deal with Chelsea, and it was a little awkward when it happened on a temporary basis on the emergency loan too. But it doesn't make it any less awkward now that it's permanent either.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of going on an emergency loan to a team that's above you in the table doesn't make any sense to me unless the deal was already agreed for her to move to Chelsea prior to the season starting, and it was just the clause was she'll move there at the end of the year unless there's some sort of crisis, and then she'll go on loan earlier. But literally an emergency loan, it just sounds as though these owners, and I hate to get into this conversation, but this is the perfect opportunity to do so. It sounds as if these owners are simply using the women's program as a financial rat hole, for lack of a better term, and these they're pawns in this game. And
it's like they're making up the rules as they go along too, to some extent.
100%. Well, so, I mean, don't be surprised if we sell our women's team to another faction of Enoch so that we can make that money. Don't be surprised if that shit happens.
Aston Villa.
I'm just saying, man. Like, I mean,
it's the body sold its women's team to like the left arm to avoid a PSR issue. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's insane, man. It's really sad.
Well, and we've talked about this too, but like the club tie-ins with clubs in the WSL is really going to be rocked by London City coming up this year and making the signings that there are, because they're independently owned, and like that's I think a lot's about to change in the women's game. Obviously, we talked a few weeks ago about them expanding the league and introducing, a little bit of a twist to relegation and promotion over the next few years. So a lot of changes are going to be happening, but it's a lot to be seen. A lot to be seen with all of that. Before we get out of here, guys, a quick update on the women's Euro thing. We talked about center back earlier. Luana Buller is missing the Euros for Switzerland. They've moved on to the last 8, but without her due to injury. That's kind of been the problem since Luana Buller signed with Spurs. And then Amanda Nilden is into the last 8 with Sweden as well. However, our Finns are out. Suominen and Ottinen are not moving on with Finland. They're not going to be in the quarter. And it looks like Liz Kopp is also not going to be moving on for the Netherlands. I believe I was keeping track of scores earlier, and it looks like they're going to fall short as well. So the Women's Euro, we talked a lot about the Club World Cup earlier this year. I've actually been watching a little bit more of the Women's Euro when I am watching football this summer, even though that hasn't admittedly been very often. I'm trying to take a break before Spurs come back in full force. But that's what's been going on the women's Euro front as well. So I think that's all we got. You guys got any other shots you need to fire off? I can't believe we've managed to take a week off and gotten this pod done in just about an hour. I feel like this was going to be a way girthier pod, but we've managed to keep it right around 60 minutes.
A manageable girth. Is that what you're saying, Andrew?
Yes.
Okay. Duly noted. Duly noted.
I have nothing else to add to this podcast.
God, I love that. Well, let's just wrap it there, guys. We're going to be back next week. As I said, just keep your head on a swivel over the next handful of weeks as the season starts to ramp up, because these pods we're going to be fitting them in when we can. I've got a lot going on. I've got a lot of travel. If you watch the podcast, you'll probably see me in some different locations doing some pods, but we will be with you next week. I know we'll have the preseason game to talk about. I will try to give that a proper viewing and let people know what I've seen. And then, obviously, we're going to have more signings coming. I think it's going to be a busy week in terms of signings. So we will keep our head on a swivel for all of that. That's going to do it for this edition of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice, and check us out on the socials as well at Tottenham Depot. For Todd, for Scott, I have been your host, Andrew. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.